right. Welcome to the I Come First podcast. We have Elisha Tichelle with us today. And this woman rocked my world, I would say about 5 years ago or so. I was in a particular certification program and she came in as a guest speaker and poured in her medicine. And I was like, I need to know this woman. So since then, we've been connected. And I really want to bring her into this space to support you who might be so interested in understanding your nervous system and how all of that works. And so that's what we're going to dive into
Mhm.
today in a very fun and exciting way with Elisha. So, Elisha, will you do a brief intro of yourself before we get this conversation started?
Totally. I am a nervous system alchemist, an embodiment coach, and I really love to bring the conversation down to the nervous system because I think that it is the most valuable and impactful place for us to
Mm.
work. And one of the reasons is I am a modality junkie. I'll just out myself. I am a super seeker and a forever
Mhm.
student. And so I needed something that became much more clear and a way to ground all of this information. And it's been the nervous system to me. So I love working with alchemy and healing through the nervous system and letting our modalities really be in support of
Oh,
that.
I can so relate to being a modality junkie, all the tools in the toolbox.
Right?
And what I discovered in my own healing journey, full transparency, is that I was doing a lot of the mindset work and the affirmations and the limiting beliefs and playing from the neck up energy. And it wasn't until I started
Yeah.
connecting my head with my heart, with my body, and working in the nervous system, in the somatics, that I actually discovered that I could have long term healing and change in my life. And so I
Yeah.
am so on board with what you're up to in the world. And that's why I just like, I have to have
Yeah.
her on. She's so amazing. So as we look at the future of personal growth and leadership, because in my
Mm,
eyes, I feel, and this is what this podcast is really about, we titled it I Come First, meaning it's time that we get
mm,
to put ourselves first, especially as women when we're so used to putting our relationships, our people, our careers, our family, our friend, everything else comes first and we get put on the back burner type of energy. And what I'm noticing is
right.
that it's not working. It's just not working. The people pleaser, good
Not
girl tendencies
working.
are not working. And so the paradigm gets to shift. And so I'm wondering, how do you see the blending of this timeless wisdom that is the nervous system and the cutting edge neuroscience reshaping our approach to personal development?
Oh, that's such a good question. And I'm really grateful for the neuroscience that is reshaping it. And I think we can become beholden or maybe really rigid around science is in like we need
Yeah.
proof of something. And I think that we want to ride that edge fully, like in growth development, because there's a part of development, like my signature program is called evolution, because I want to be pushing the boundaries of where we're going, right? I want us to be moving to the next phase. However, I do want to make sure that I'm using practices and tools and guiding people in a way that is sound and that there is some type of research behind it. One of the reasons I think neuroscience and neuroscience study is really important is because modalities have blasted off. And one of the things I like us to remember is that not all modality was created, they're not all created equally, right? Like there are modalities that are scientifically sound that have come from a real understanding of how the brain, the body, the nervous system, the emotional system work. And there are modalities that were created by people because they worked for them. Those are
Yeah.
adaptations. That's not a modality, right? And if we as practitioners, if we as buyers of programs and goer to coaches and healers, if we don't know some things about neuroscience ourselves, we can get taken for a ride. Not necessarily because any of these people want to be taking us for a ride, but because they themselves didn't understand anything of the science
Mm.
foundation. So I think all of us having some working understanding of neuroplasticity, how the basics of our nervous system work, and how our neurobiology can be evolved by our own technology, inner technology of the body is super important and super empowering. And that self help, growth, transformation, whatever the particular niche is around this, has to be rooted in that.
Mm.
So while I don't think we need to be like, I can't try something unless I've had 32 white papers on it, I do think that we want to make sure that we're moving from some type of ground of scientific foundation. I think self help that gives a little bit of understanding of neuroscience actually is super empowering for the practitioner Because if you're supposed to do something just because I
Yeah.
said, just because it worked for me, you like me and you want to emulate me, like none of those things are very good in terms of your own personal empowerment, right? And so we want to be moving towards personal empowerment. We want to be creating an intersectional way of living as a
Mhm.
society that has space for all bodies, all people, all ways. The more we understand about how we operate, both from the hardware of what our nervous system and our neurobiology is doing, as well as from the personalized individual aspects of what our soul is here to do, what we're carrying of our intergenerational traumas and gifts, and all of those things, and just what we like and dislike. When those things can all come together, we can create harmony within ourselves as well as harmony within the
I
collective,
I
I
am
believe.
with you 1,000%, and I'm that person who geeks out on all the neuroscience. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, more to learn." Like, I find it
Yeah.
fascinating, and so when all of these studies have been flooding, out on the internet and you can read more and get more of that insight of like, "Oh, this is how my body and brain operate? Oh, shit. Well, that makes sense."
Yeah.
Because to me, it's like putting the puzzle pieces together at times, and so for my clients who are maybe a little more on the heady side and the women want to be
Mhm.
connected to their bodies and to the understanding of their rhythms and their natural tendencies and what is a learned behavior and what's inhibiting them in life. It's really bridging the gap between the
Right.
science and the spiritual worlds for me anyway, and for a
That's
lot of
right.
my clients. And
That's
it's so much fun when you have those aha moments of like, oh my gosh, that totally
Yep.
makes sense. And like you said,
Right.
it's not a one size fits all. It's not everything's for everyone. You really get to find what works for you. And that comes with
That's
trying
right.
things on, just checking it out and seeing what's
Yeah.
possible in the end. And so in your
Yeah.
approach, Elisha, you guide women to go beyond just like I'll say the word fixing their nervous system. Can you share how women can leverage that innate wisdom that our nervous system is constantly talking to us, not just to manage stress, but to unlock that profound transformation in both personal and professional lives?
First, I would say you cannot fix your nervous system, and that regulation tools, regulation practices, I'm saying both of those things in quotes, that are about fixing what you are perceiving as dysregulation, as a problem, as discomfort, are coping strategies. So if you're meditating to get out of discomfort, all you're doing is adding another coping strategy, albeit maybe a healthier one than having 6 glasses of wine or other things, but it's still a coping strategy. You're not actually shifting your nervous system, right? So the first thing we want to recognize is you have the power to shift your adaptiveness. Everything in your life has brought you into the adaptive nature you have. If you want to be more responsive, if you want to be more reflexive, if you want to be more magnetic, if you want to expand and increase your capacities, that is all within your natural wheelhouse. What do we have to do that? More than putting in more coping strategies and controlling strategies. So, what I see most conversations, most even books, most even teachers around the nervous system are going to give you tools to control.
Mm,
I want to teach you how to undo the conditioning,
mm,
to decolonize your nervous system back to its own innate wild radiance so you become the fullest
yeah,
you, which means you know how to ride the waves even when they show up with chaos, even when life hands you a big old bag of lemons and you were like, I was not ready for this, right? All of those moments. We want the most adaptive nervous system is the one that goes, yep, I've got
mhm,
this. I've got this. Not a nervous system that's locked in stasis and trying to control feelings, sensations, get out of things. That is a very low capacity nervous system,
mhm,
right? So if we can get out of needing to fix
yeah,
ourselves and we can say, I am willing to become so in love with my responsiveness and I can become so in choice about the way I'm moving in my
mm,
responsiveness so that my life, like, so this is I come first, right? Well, what comes first in you coming first is a nervous system that is adaptively healed towards support,
yeah,
right? That you know you've got the tools within you, that your body was designed to harmonize dysregulation, not fix it,
correct.
not control
Mhm,
it, not run away
mhm,
from it, all of those things,
mhm,
right? And so what happened is that we were not taught as children how to choose from our innate responsiveness. And we learned to
mhm,
adapt and contort to fit what someone else wanted us to be and do.
Absolutely, 1,000%. And so what I'm hearing, if I were to break it down into like two things, it's responding or reacting, like projecting your stuff, right? And that's what I did most of my
That's
life.
right.
I projected out
All of us.
so much. Like my parents, it's your
Yeah.
fault. It's your fault. You fucked me up, like all the things, right? And that was just the blame game that I played because that's what I was well practiced in. I didn't know anything else. And I
Right.
was so disconnected from the power of choice, the power of my innate wisdom, actually communicating as a child, me wanting to express and
Right.
feel and communicate, and that being shut down caused me to go into that fight
Yeah.
or flight, caused me to go into that just
Right.
fawn and appease and okay, I'll just do whatever you say just to feel like I
Right.
belong or I can fit in somewhere. And it just did a disservice to myself and my entire life. And then taking radical responsibility
Yeah.
for that was the biggest step I could have taken for myself. And for all of the women that I work with, that is the game. It's like stepping back into your power, self empowerment. You know, you and I as
Ugh.
coaches, as guides, we're not handing their power to them. They're handing it to themselves by showing up powerfully for themselves for the work that we have to offer. You
That's
know?
right. Yes, absolutely. And I think for so many of us, like you had that, you're talking about that kind of externalizing of that shame and that pushback, but I bet there was a place before that, that there was the internalization that I am the one who is wrong.
Oh, of course. Of course.
I'm not right. I'm not welcome as I
Mhm.
am, right? Because that's a lot of the message that we're getting when we're being conditioned as
Mhm.
children around our behavior, around our thoughts,
Yes.
around our feelings, and it can be as covert as, like, having to sit still at
Yeah.
school, right? And you just keep like, you just wanna fidget like kids, like, they just, like, walk
Yeah.
around, and to be told, like, "Don't do that,
Mhm.
that's not good," right? All of those ways that we're conditioned out of
Mhm.
what the body wants to be doing and how to follow it. But I think another really important part of this is that and I think this is something that's really prevalent in the coaching world, and for those of us who step into self-empowerment, is that we're really willing to understand the active choice in the moment. But the biggest flex is having a nervous system. So choice happens at the level of nervous system. So if I'm making conscious choice, it's already because something has organized my body, my thoughts, my emotions in a certain way. Now I could be responsive or reactive or whatever to that, right? But the biggest flex is actually to work in the place that's doing the
Mm.
organizing, to say that choice lives at the pre-conscious place. So what does my subconscious
Mhm.
believe? Does my subconscious believe I get to come first? Does my subconscious trust that I am worthy? Does my subconscious know that I am welcome,
Mhm.
wanted, and perfectly imperfect as I am? And not many people in the world have a subconscious that holds that. That's the reprogramming work. That's right. That's the reprogramming work.
Exactly. And
Exactly.
that's the fun part about the mind. It is so malleable and we have so much science to back that up when we used to think, no, you're either just
Yes.
smart or you're stupid or you're this or you're that. It was very black and white. And now we have so
Right.
much information
Yeah.
of like, oh, it's Play-Doh. I mean, we can start to really manipulate and contort to a life that we actually desire and not to the one that we were
That's right.
taught or preached into or the environment that we were in or the circumstances that really just molded us to behave this way and this is the way it's supposed to be and this is what society says it's you have to do and it's that game and it's
Right. But the other thing it is, it's totally that game. But the other thing I think that's really key here is that if we don't do, before we start choosing what we want to adapt to and what we want to create and what we want to magnetize, if there's not been a space where we've been held to explore, who am I really? What is my nature? How do I unpack some of this conditioning? So I know for myself, I got married. I was in a great relationship, good guy, but I felt the compulsion to get married. Right? As that marriage was ending, I had to really look at myself and go, did I actually want
mm,
marriage? Relationship, yes, right? But there was a pressure, there was a stressor
mm,
that came from my conditioning that was not necessarily innately true.
mm,
right? But I didn't have space inside of that relationship to explore whether marriage as a contract, as a legal binding contract, was something I wanted to participate in. Because my conditioning said, if you love someone, if you're with them for a certain amount of years, and if you're within your childbearing years, you get married.
Mm.
So my adaptability is not just about me then being like, and now I'm going to manifest $1,000,000 in a Lamborghini and two kids, right? But it's like having the space to say, do I, Elisha, really want this? Is it
Mhm.
true to me?
Yeah.
Right. And most of the time, I think what happens is that we try and run too fast
Mhm.
with getting to the expansion
Mhm.
without making space to do the healing, which is unpacking the conditioning
Right,
and
right.
really being able to listen to our pure, amazing heart, right? Like the innocence and the purity and the magic of our own heart,
Mhm.
right? And not moving from like the
Mhm.
comparison of like, oh, this is what it is to be successful. This is what it is to be healed. This is what it is to be enlightened, right? Like we're too quick to pick up the blueprint from social media, from a book, from another coach, from somebody. And I think that we would be so well served if there was more spaces where we could unpack and explore in the messiness and the undoing and the unknown of what we want before we start trying to build gray matter towards something new.
Right. So basically, you can't skip the steps.
I don't think
You
so.
get to take it step by step, and it's interesting because I went through something similar to what you're talking about in the relationship dynamics. I was, my a big value that I still hold today, however, now there's more flexibility when I tune into myself, was my word, is my word, the integrity of my word. If I say I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do something, and back then, I'm talking in my early 20s, I I said, "Okay, well, if I'm gonna do something, my word is my word," and I didn't realize there was any flexibility around that according to my own attunement of like, "Oh, well, how do I feel about it?" It was more of the externals going, "Okay, your word is your word, and that's what you have to do." And so I stepped into a marriage because my word was my word, and I guess I have to walk down this path, and I did walk down the path, and it's not to say that I didn't want marriage per se, it wasn't to that person, and I was trying so hard to make something work because I was feeling the pressure of my age, society. I wanted the dream wedding, which I had. It was beautiful, and all of the things, and, I really there's a part of me that feels guilty that I put a big wrench in his life and not just my own, and I'm trusting that that's what our soul contract signed up for and all the above, and I get it, but back then, I didn't feel like I had choice. I felt like I said this thing and I gotta be obligated to this thing, and I didn't understand that part of it. And so now in my life, really looking at, like you said, the words, what do I want? What do I desire? And so many of my clients, Alicia, I ask them and they don't even have a clue, nor did I back over a decade ago because I didn't understand I had choice. I'm like, oh, no one's ever asked me this before. What do I want? Oh, wow, this is a weird question. And so to sit and contemplate that and be with what do I actually want from my I call it my true self, the true self, not the one where you're wearing the masks and pretending to be somebody you're not and trying to fit in and all the external BS. My true self, what do I desire? And getting radically honest can be such a game changer because that in and of itself is such a healing reflection. When you sit with that, what do I actually want?
I love to come in the side door of that
Yes,
question.
go.
So like, because I think sometimes we ask it straight on. All of those parts that felt so unsafe,
Mm,
so like they don't belong, they're not wanted. All maybe the weirder parts of us, the parts that haven't reintegrated, they don't like kind of like, oh, we can go into a freeze, right? Like, what do I want? I have no idea. So I
mm,
love to come in the side door and sort of ask myself, like, what is my criteria for an amazing life?
mm,
Like, what do I think builds? Like, what are the building blocks of an
mhm,
amazing life?
mhm,
Right. And to start like in a smaller way. And then just to start playing with like, well, what would that add up to? Right. If I took all these building blocks, if I took this building block of beauty and joy and fun and travel and relationships, like if I built that, like, oh, I just said what I wanted without going through that freeze pattern
mhm,
of maybe I don't get what I want, or maybe I'm not going to be allowed.
mm.
Right. Because I think a lot of us, that pattern lives in our nervous system.
Or I don't
Oh,
deserve it.
I don't deserve it. It's not going to happen for me. It's for everybody else. Right. Like we all have
Yeah.
The whole thing of that, right? And so I think sometimes just come in the side door. Just come in the side door and ask it in a way that it's like our system doesn't get tripped up by it. So if you
Mhm.
ever freeze around that question, just come in the side door.
I love it. Side door go. It's a great reframe so that we're not putting so much pressure to get the right answer and to figure it all out. And, back to the step by step. We want the carrot that's way over there a lot of the times. And the only way to get to the carrot is to not keep moving the carrot, one thing. Two, to take it step by step so that you're having these moments of realizations and it's not a big flood because it can be too much for the system. It's taking the little bits and pieces and the nooks and crannies and it's like making a puzzle, putting the puzzle pieces together one piece at a time.
That's right. That's right. I do think in our society, there's a lot of pressure to run before we've even attempted to scoot,
Yeah.
much less crawl and walk.
Mm,
And a lot of time, I think what is adding more stress to us is that we're shaming ourselves. We're shitting ourselves for not already having that carrot.
yeah.
But I also love what you said about not moving the carrot because I think that, and I think especially for those of us who are getting to a certain place in our 40s, moving into our 50s, and it's like you start to go, well, if I want it, actually, like I can build some stuff, right? And then you have to sit with like, oh my goodness, it's terrifying. It's terrifying to have what I want
Yeah.
because that has not been made safe for us.
Mhm.
Right? That has not been, so it's like we are almost become addicted to chasing the carrot,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it's like it's so powerful to actually work with the fear that
Mhm.
like that carrot could get close. I could actually get that carrot and to really metabolize that fear. Totally, right? I mean, we all go like, I want to be seen, I want to be
Mhm.
held, I want to be known. And then it's like you get into those positions where it's like vulnerability and intimacy are real, and we all go, oh,
Mm.
nobody wants me. It's like it becomes terrifying to get what we want. So I think it's a really good practice to not move that carrot.
Right? And, I share with my clients, I use the language, "We're building the body to hold what you want." I'll use one of my clients, for instance, say she's making $100,000 a year and she desires to make $500,000 a year. That's a big increase. So if all of a sudden the 500K lands in her lap, her body energetically would be like, and wouldn't know how to hold it energetically. And I'll speak from my own experience. That happened to me when my parents passed away. A beautiful inheritance that came in a certain package created a lot of anxiety inside myself. I was like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna mess it up. I'm gonna like, what do I do?" And I went into a panic. And I got to go, "Okay, let's just take it one step at a time here," And it's that game of building the energetic body to hold the love of your life, hold the career you say you want, hold the family you say you desire, hold that deep, intimate relationship, and it comes from within first. Can I hold it with myself, that deep love that I desire with my partner? Can I hold it here first? That intimacy, that depth of knowing somebody. Well, do I know myself at that depth? Can I get to that level within? Can I be walking the walk so then I can show up powerfully in partnership and friendship, in community? That's the game, you know?
That's right. And we've all heard about people getting the lottery and then, being broke. And I
Mhm,
mean, that's like the big extreme example of that.
mhm,
But what I think we don't talk about enough is that everything we want to create, everything we want to hold, everything we want to do has a charge to it. And again, a lot of nervous system work talks about getting out of the charge, right? But $500,000 is a different charge than $100,000, which is a different charge than
right.
$30,000. Now, energetically, can I recognize money as neutral?
Mm.
Right? That's the first thing, right? So we have to work about bringing things into some sort of harmony or neutralization, right? Which requires us to do the belief work and the mindset work around something.
Mhm,
But then, in terms of actually being able to hold it or allowing our nervous system to be able to draw it in and have it in our body,
mhm.
requires that we have a vessel that could hold that much charge. So if you've traveled, right, and like we use, I'm not going to know the numbers right because they don't make sense to me, but like let's just say it's 100, I think it's like 120 volts, right? That you plug into the wall, and then you go someplace else to another country and their plug-in is 220, right?
Mm.
It's the same idea that the
Right.
voltage that you hold in your body matters. That voltage is a nervous system pattern, not just a mindset pattern. The nervous system, the body is sending the information to the brain. You can do it. You can hold this. This is okay.
Mm.
The body follows what it sensorially and charge wise knows is normal. So when we're repeating those patterns, when we're like, it's the same freaking relationship, or it's the same, payday's here again, and I'm at that's because the body is following what's normal. And it doesn't matter so much if there's a mismatch between what we're thinking about it and what the body is holding. We will always default to the body because that is where the subconscious
Yeah.
automated system sits,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it takes us not just doing the mindset work, but actually rewiring the neural pathways to be
Mhm.
available to
Yeah.
hold the literal, as you said, energy of
Yeah.
something, right?
Right.
And that is what when someone says, like in manifestation work, when someone says becoming a vibrational match to what you're wanting, that is the process. That is the nervous system process of being
Mhm.
able to hold that charge or that power, right, in
Exactly.
our bodies. And it
Exactly.
really does work. It really does matter.
And it so matters because the reality is we cannot beat our biology. We become friends with it. We become friends with it. We get to know it. We get to understand our patterns, our habits, our ways of being, and that's how the change happens. It's the catch. Oh, I catch that and I choose something else. I pivot. I work with what's here. I allow. I be with the feelings, the emotions, and all the things. I no more suppressing, no more pushing down. Simply going, oh shit, I'm a human being. I'm having a human experience right now. And everything doesn't always have to look like sunshine and unicorns. And this is the truth of my life right now. Let's be with it. Let's be with it so that you can get through it, you know? And so I'd love, as we kind of start to wrap up ish, guys, there's so much to talk about. Can you elaborate on the concept that goes beyond traditional stress management techniques that potentially reshapes our understanding of what's possible when it comes to this healing and this up leveling? Because I know we have a lot of stress techniques out there and stress management. I think that it is a very big part of it. Again, it gets to go deeper into the understanding of what is actually possible in the connection of the body.
Yeah. So what I would say is we don't want to do any stress management or even use that word when we're talking about ourselves. I think managing stress, we want to look at managing stressors in situations, boundaries, yeses
Mhm.
and nos. What can we say? That's where management might come in the external world and the way we're communicating. Internally, we don't want to manage stress because that implies that we want to hold it. And what we want to be doing is continually lowering the stress load, lowering the charge, clearing the stimuli. It's sort of like we don't want to let the dust keep collecting in our
Yeah.
house. And if we think about stress as just dust that comes into our system, we just need to keep, we brush our teeth every day. We need to de-stress, discharge is what I call it. Discharge the
Mhm.
charge from the excess charge from the body,
Mhm.
unload the system. We need to recognize that a lot of things we called relaxation are attempts to discharge. Are we doing that in ways that actually allow our system to return to some sort of openness or some sort of suppleness, some sort of place of movement? We need to have places where we're practicing the primal organic, indigenous animal body that we are. How does it express? How does it move? How does it, like what is the sensory system and how do we open it?
Mhm.
The more in touch. So, the number one predictor for a safe, expanded nervous system is going to be interoception. Can you practice being in your sensory body? Are you paying attention first to the neurobiological cues? I'm hungry, I need to go to the bathroom, I'm tired. Are you paying attention to the sensory cues and the emotional cues? If you stay in touch with yourself, de-stressing and unloading is normal. It's natural. Our body knows how to do it. We were designed, we were designed to move with stress. You're never going to get rid of your stress system. It's what's keeping you alive. Thank goodness. So we want to integrate it. We want to have it be as supportively adaptive as possible. And we want to use it. So we want to practice good fight, right? So that looks like standing up for ourselves. I come first, choosing ourselves, being really available to how we're engaged in our life,
Yeah.
right? Adaptive flee. We know when to let go. We know when to say it's done. We know how to release it, come to completion, right? Adaptive freeze, being able to take a pause, organize ourselves, feel really centered before we take action,
Yeah.
right? Those are all within our normal, natural wheelhouse if we will let the system come back to what it already knows how to do.
Mhm.
So I think more than managing stress, we want to set the conditions where we unstress, de-stress, release stress, clear stress, whatever words you want to put there, right? So, and what we have to recognize is that every day in modern life is stressful. Environmental stresses, communal stresses, personal stresses, family stresses, all those
Yeah.
things,
Yeah.
right? But if we just keep putting on coats, we would get really, really hot and it would be really, really uncomfortable and hard to move, right? So when we come out of the cold, we take off the coat.
Yeah.
And there needs to be space in our life where we can take off the stress coat.
Yes. Exactly.
Can look like a lot of different things, but for each of us, it needs to look like something like breath work, meditation, movement, mindset, mindfulness, right? Like we need all of those kind of ingredients. They don't all have to be formal practices. You can do your mindset while you're on the treadmill. You can do, lots of stuff. If you're a mom, bathroom time, might be the only time you get 3 seconds before you're hearing your name again, right? That is a great place to breathe, right? Like there's ways that it might have to be adapted into your life. If you're like me in a place of life where you've got plenty of time to practice, it gets to look really rich. It gets to look really different, right? But we all can do it and we were designed to do it. And I think that is the biggest takeaway is like nervous system work isn't doing something different. It's going back home. It's
Right.
doing what you were already designed to do.
And it's so fascinating. It blows my mind that we are designed for this, yet somehow it got thrown out the kitchen window. Like, how did that how did that happen? It just blows my mind. And I am so excited that I feel that we're in a time in our lives, and I'm so glad that I'm alive in this time where it's changing. Like this is changing. This is not the norm anymore. It's not the norm to suppress. It's not the norm to negotiate with your emotions of when you can and cannot feel something. Yes, there's a time and place for things, but there is no longer, it's not a luxury anymore. Oh, it's a luxury to have a therapist or a coach or self-care. No, like you said, it's brushing your teeth, it's drinking water, it's eating, it's sleeping. This is an essential part of being a human being. We just keep suppressing, and you're wearing all the coats. You're gonna shrink down to such a tiny little, like, "Who am I in the world? Where is my voice? What do I believe in anymore? How do I breathe?" It's too much, it's too heavy, it's impossible to hold it all, and we have this expectation that we're supposed to hold it all, especially as women, have a family, be sexy, upkeep, look youthful, exercise every day, make the meals for everybody, like upkeep the house, upkeep your career, run a business, run your social outings. Like, holy crap. It's just a lot.
It's so much. It's so much. But I think that there comes this place where I feel like we're moving to, especially around what you're just naming, the all of it, that there's a real reevaluation of standards and values that are happening. And I really encourage people to do that, not through social media and influencer culture, but through listening to yourself and really finding the standards for life, the criteria for a good life for yourself. But I think we also have to recognize we have evolved as a species to not be dealing with a lot that we're dealing with.
Yeah.
And yet there is an unwillingness to accept our capacity to evolve as a human species.
Mhm.
And so I think that's where the real work is as a collective is coming together in community. And
Mhm.
so what I like to remember is if I don't want to see war happening in the world, I have to be willing to stop being at war with my own body,
Yeah.
right? If I want to see graciousness, if I want to see connectivity, if I want to see the beauty that I believe life is, I have to be
Mhm.
willing to see the beauty that life is, right? So I think remembering that we are part of the collective that we want to change. So while we can do our self-work really insulated, really isolated, hyper vigilantly independent for all of us who carry that trauma pattern, right? Or we can do it in service of changing the whole conversation for the collective.
Mm.
And I think that the best gift we can give our ancestors who had to do some real freaking hard lifting to survive so that we could be alive is to be willing to change the set points on survival so that we recognize new levels of thriving.
Mm. So good, so good. So, for the woman who's listening right now and she's like, "Well, how do I start? What do I do? Where do I even begin?" What is a simple daily practice that you can share to help women leaders of their lives, whether they're mamas or entrepreneurs or solopreneurs or CEOs, whatever they might be doing in their world? How can they start to tune into their nervous systems?
Formal practice, I would say breath work. And I know both of us are breath work facilitators. And so if you're going to choose a modality, again, backed by science, backed by evidence, breath work is the biggest flex you can do of being able to change your system biologically, emotionally,
Mm,
at the vagus nerve for the nervous system level and mindset all at the same time, right? So I think formal practice, breath work. Informal practice, touching your own body,
mm.
taking a deep sighing breath and just saying some loving, comforting, supporting words to yourself. Just being willing to love and support yourself, turning with compassion towards yourself. So, two practices that I have every day. I make sure I smile at myself and I hold my own hand.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Um, I was just thinking of a practice that I have. I've been doing a lot of inner child work lately. And actually, over the past few years, now it's just the norm for me to have a conversation with younger versions of myself. And I have this particular Care Bear. It's a little blue one. And I just snuggle up with it at night and I let her know, I love you. I got you. I'm here. Like, what do you need? And it's really like no longer self abandoning. 'Cause that was something I would put all my needs aside, I would do everything for everyone thinking that's the way, and I would totally be self-abandoning, like, my own needs or my own desires, and so, yes, I mean, breath work for sure, science-backed, one of my faves, it's something I do almost every day, even if it's a 3-minute practice to just get in and ground in, but I love the holding hand too, that's adorable, oh my gosh, I love it, but
And I think for those of us who are healing self abandonment, last thing, first thing is a great practice. So having that cuddle at night as like the last thing before you go to bed, and then first thing in the morning, taking a moment, and maybe that's when you hold your hand to get a little fetal position and do some humming and just say like, "Oh my God, I just love you so much. I'm so proud of you. You're going to do great today." Just like really tending that place that needs connection and to know like you're doing a good job. Like you're navigating a lot. The world is crazy. Life is crazy. And you're still alive. You're doing great. You took a shower at least once this week. You're doing great. Right? You've mostly fed all the people in your life. You're doing great. It's like, having some reality around these expectations that we have and just kind of cheerleading ourselves.
yes, being less hard on ourselves. My inner critic used to be so loud, like so loud, so loud. But anyway, I love this. That's a great way to start the day. Breath work, hand holding, eye gazing, like all the things that we get to do, even while you're brushing your teeth, like even while you're doing the simplest things, you can add that in on the daily. Or when you pass by the mirror, you walk by and just look at yourself and give yourself a high five, like acknowledgement. Um, Alicia, how is the best way for people to reach you? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
I think right now probably just check out my Instagram. It's usually got links to everything that would be active there. I do have a newsletter, so you can find that through Instagram.
Oh, yes, we will put your Instagram in the show notes. So to the woman who is listening right now, go ahead and connect with Alicia. She is an incredible human being. And, one of my deepest desires is to use this platform, this podcast, to actually connect, to say, hey, reach out to me and have conversation. A friend of mine was talking about how we feel that social media has become like a television. It's something you watch versus a telephone. Like, hey, connect. Hi, how are you? I saw you on this podcast. I saw your post. I XYZ, XYZ. Like, connect, reach out, let's be there for each other. Like, let's just do it because that's the way. Community is the way. In my opinion, it is the way. We do not have to walk this path alone. We get to do it together. And I'm so grateful, Alicia, that you came into my life a few years back because you've taught me so much. And it's been an absolute joy to watch you and how you serve and support. And now we get to do it together. So amazing.
Thank you, and your energy is always so amazing to get to dance with,
Thank
and
you.
you facilitate such beautiful conversations, and I'm so grateful for that.
Thank you. Until next time, thank you for joining the I Come First podcast. Thank you, Elisha, for joining, and we'll see you soon.